guys, I am Pixel Dan, and today I wanted to check out the latest wave of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ultimates from Super 7. Now, I think the last time I took a look at a wave of Super 7 TMNT Ultimates, I was pretty disappointed in them. That was the wave with Leatherhead and Krang and his Bubble Walker and Raphael, and many of those figures, specifically my Leatherhead, had the worst time standing up. Just the loosest joints possible in the hips. The Krang was like putty, the way the Bubble Walker just kind of always flopped down. And I was pretty disappointed at the end of that review. But, man, I can't deny how great the sculpting is on these figures. Like, they look so good. They are certainly figures that I've always wanted to see for Turtles. And we're living in a world where there are so many amazing options for Turtles, and I kind of love that all these companies are doing their own thing with Turtles. It's one of my favorite properties, so I always love having the options. I decided to go ahead and pick up this newest wave because I started seeing some good feedback. I started seeing some positive reaction to this new wave of figures, so today we're going to be jumping in and checking out that newest wave. And this newest wave gives us Space Cadet Raphael, one of my all-time favorite variants of Raphael. It gives us Genas Frog, another classic mutant from the original Playmates Toys toy line. It also gives us Robotic Rocksteady, which is based on a really cool figure in that original line, and a repaint of Shredder, which has now got silver armor instead of the blue. Now, all of these figures do come in those same style window boxes we've had before, though worth noting, no more mailer boxes on the outside. These just came as is. The slip covers are still removable, showing off the figures within, and we still have the good guys in green boxes and the bad guys in purple boxes, but worth noting, Shredder's box is metallic purple. It's got like this shiny, embossed purple outer box there. I'm not sure why he got that over the others. I guess maybe it's something to do with his silver armor variation, but packaging is great. Let's dive in and check out the figures. All right, let's go ahead and start with Shredder here, since he is essentially a repaint. Just in case you are not familiar with the Ultimates, the figure does stand pretty much right at 7 inches tall. So this is a variant of Shredder, which we already received way back when Ultimates first started. Of course, this version over here on the left is more inspired by the color scene on the vintage Playmates Toys action figure. Shirtless Shredder, blue helmet, blue armor. So this new version here is the same figure, but with a new paint deco, changing the blue to a metallic silver. Now, I know when you look at this, it's one of those things where you think, oh, they made it silver because it was silver in the cartoon. And that's partially right. But specifically, this Shredder is based on a pretty rare variant from the vintage toy line. In fact, so rare, it's probably a early production piece, and there might only be one of them in existence. Photos of it are floating around online. That is specifically what this is inspired by. And honestly, it looks pretty cool. The silver on this figure is really nice and shiny. You can see it's got a good metallic gleam to it. And it looks pretty good with that still like basic Playmates Toys style Shredder design. Shirtless, so he can show off his abs and everything there. But it's pretty nice. And he does come with a lot of the same accessories that we had with that other Shredder. So, of course, we've got a slew of interchangeable hands, which would give us some closed fists, some gripping hands, as well as some open hands. And these are easy to change out just by pulling on the hand to pull it out of the socket there. It actually locks in pretty good, so you might have to really pull on that there and then press the new hand into place, but it does clip into place very nicely. It's a nice solid lock, which I do like. The spikes are pretty gummy here in the front, but honestly that's probably good because they're not going to break, they're not brittle, they're not going to stab you when you're trying to switch the hands off and on there. So good interchangeability there. And the other thing I want to talk about is that the articulation does all feel really good on this guy. The joints actually feel pretty tight. So you can see the shoulders there, really tight at the shoulders. They can go outwards, forwards, backwards. That head is on a ball joint there. We have swivels at the bicep, just a single joint at the elbow, but it's like a ratchet joint. You can see how it's like clicking there, and it's also very tight. Swivel and hinge at the wrist. There's nothing in the torso there, but it does roll around. The thighs here are probably the loosest joints on the figure, but they're not so loose that they're like wobbly. In fact, these also have the ratchet. They just move a little bit more fluidly than the arms do, but I wouldn't say that these are loose by any means. So you can swivel there up at the thigh. You do just have a single joint at the knee. Again, you got that ratcheting going on there where it kind of click, 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 click. Swivel there as well, and then the ankles, forwards and backwards, rock side to side. Those all feel pretty tight. So the construction on this guy feels really good, which is very, very nice, especially since not that long ago, we had a wave of figures where the joints were really bad, especially in the legs on all the figures. So that is one thing I'll say out the gate. It really does feel like the QC is much better on this particular wave, and you'll see that as we're going through this. I just hope that it really maintains going forward. All right, so for accessories, we do get 2 of these awesome katanas, which are also done with that beautiful metallic silver on the blades, so it kind of matches his armor. You've got purple on the handles there. He gets a really nice grip on those with his gripping hands. I like that we've got 2 of them too. I think that's pretty awesome, so Shredder can have some dual wielding katana battles there. We've also got some other classic Ninja Turtle style weapons, all done in that same paint deco with the metallic paints. We even have this really cool little mutagen ooze canister there. Very small. Now, one of the things, just like with the other release of the Shredder, is we do have 2 options for capes here. So we've got the cloth cape or a plastic cape, so you could do whichever one you prefer. Now, what I've got on him right now is the cloth one because it is much more in line with the vintage action figure. You've got this elastic belt right here that you basically just slide up over that cape to make it fit like this. It is also a wired robe, I believe. So look at that. We got some bending and twisting there, so that's really nice. So you can actually kind of pose that around, get some windswept poses with that if you want to do so. Now, if we want to remove that, you're going to want to like pop the head off the joint there. This will just slide up over the neck, and as I mentioned, you do have this like elastic belt that you'll just bring down over the legs there. And that removes that cloth cape, and then in its place you can pop on this plastic cape if you prefer, which is also a pretty cool look. I like that too. So again, I think that's really just going to be up to your personal preference on which version of Shredder you would like to pose it with. Now, look, these hips are a bit on the loose side, so you know what? I'm actually going to say that they're a bit looser than I think I like. I still don't think they're like overly loose, but just when you're posing it around, it does tend to like his body leans forward just a little bit. They really need to tighten up these hips on these figures. He does have one more interchangeable head, which is new for this particular Shredder. This one is really cool because it's got silver on the front of the mask as well instead of the purple, and the eye portion is shadowed out. It's a really interesting and unique look, and it's a way to make this Shredder figure really look and feel completely different from the other Shredder that we've already received. So here we go. We'll put that on there. And look, just to bring in that other Shredder, now these really feel like 2 different Shredder figures. So I don't know. It's cool. It is just a repaint. And while I like the repainted parts, if you're perfectly happy with that other version of Shredder that you've already got, honestly, you could probably skip this one unless you really do prefer those shiny silver parts. All right, let's take it over to Genas Frog. This is a big hulking action figure. The mutants in this line just feel big, which is awesome. Just the overall proportions and everything. And this is a really good looking update of the original Playmates Toys version of Genghis Frog. The details are really, really nice. You can see sculpted there in his skin. Just look at how warty his skin is all the way through. There's a black wash on there to bring out all of those details. Some of the spots, it just looks a little overly dirty, like they might have overdid the black wash just a little bit. But for the most part, I do really like the way that this looks. I think those details are pretty awesome. And even in like his little Hawaiian shirt there's some sculpted textures, which I'm not sure if that's coming through here on camera, but it does look really nice in person. And I mean, they basically did a great job of recapturing the paint deco from that vintage toy. Although I will say on the vintage toy, all of these details were raised sculpts on the shirt, and here they just painted it on. Now, it's probably fine. Obviously, it's just a shirt, so it's details printed on a shirt, but just felt like pointing that out. He is wearing the very cool soda can belt, and this is a removable accessory. You can see it just straps on the back here. One thing to note, the soda can bombs are not removable from this. They are part of the sculpt. Now, they are painted, which is very nice, red and silver, and the belt is brown. But yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that the bombs are not removable. Honestly, probably fine. This way I won't lose any of the bombs, but I could see that being a valid complaint for somebody who might want the option to have him holding one or two of the bombs in his hands. He does have this very cool gold chain necklace there, the little tooth. You can see that's a separate accessory around his neck. Honestly, this guy's just really, really nice and really hefty feeling. I like the watch over here on his right hand. He's got the gold chain bracelet over here on the left. Really fun character design that I think they did a good job of plussing up for the Ultimates line. It looks really nice. He's another one that feels really good too. His articulation feels pretty solid all the way through. Obviously, he's got that hunched back thing going on, so his head movement will be a little bit different, but all of these joints feel nice and tight all the way through. Even the thighs definitely feel tighter than the Shredder figure we were just looking at, so I definitely wouldn't call these loose at all. Look at that tight joints at the knees, swivel there at the knees. You got the big frog toes there on those feet, and you can see the ankles up and down. They also do rock side to side. So this guy stands pretty good. The articulation does feel nice on him. And he's got a bunch of accessories too. Just like all of the figures in this line, we've got a bunch of interchangeable hands, which give you some regular gripping hands there, but also some gripping hands that have more open fingers, with a finger that's specifically like a trigger finger for one of his accessories. And then we've got the closed fists, so that is really nice. But we also have this totally insane interchangeable head. This is like an original creation by Super 7, where it's got like this big open mouth with the tongue. Look at those teeth. So we can easily just pop off the head, off the ball joint there. Here you can see that the necklace is a removable piece as well. We can take that new head, let's press it on the ball joint there. Oh yeah, that ball joint kind of moves around underneath there. Well, that one definitely takes a little bit of work, especially the first time you pop it on there. But look at that. This head sculpt is amazing. I love it. I mean, it's a totally insane look for Genghis Frog, but also it's that thing that just makes him feel totally new and totally different, like giving us something we have not had for Genghis Frog before. I like that. Look at like how the shiny, glossy paint deco on the tongue. So Genghis Frog, what a great head sculpt. I love the expression on that there. So he also has a lot of really nice accessories, all of which inspired by that vintage action figure. So he does have this boogie board shield, which the vintage toy had, although this one is much larger. Like they definitely made it full boogie board size, so that's pretty cool. And one of the other things they added to it is he actually has this little elastic band with the little strap that would go around his wrist, or, you know, an ankle or whatever, because, you know, if you're going to boogie board, that's how you make sure you don't lose your board. But as this is a shield, we can actually just pop off the hand. We can slide that over the wrist. And then we can take that handle on the back, slide it through there. It's a little loose in his hand. But that's how we attach the boogie board shield. And then, just like on the vintage toy, we also have this totally insane frog tongue gun. This time fully painted. Obviously, the vintage toy, it was just molded in blue plastic. But it's got the big tongue sticking out of it. And it actually works similar to the vintage one, where you just press the plunger and the tongue kind of extends a little bit. Little bit of some paint rub on there with the silver, but it's pretty wild seeing this thing fully painted. So we can place that in that gripping hand that's got kind of the wider sculpt to it, and he actually holds onto that gun pretty good. To finish off the look, we've also got the sunglasses. This was another thing that came with the vintage toy. They were just molded in blue plastic as well. Super 7 actually painted the lenses green, and this just kind of sits over his head. It actually sits pretty sturdy up there, and that really completes the look of our Genas Frog, which is super fun. And we got to do this. It's comparison time. So I do just want to bring in the vintage action figure to stand these two side by side. You can see the differences and the similarities there. I don't have any of the accessories on this vintage one, so I apologize for that. But you can see how they translated a lot of these details into the new figure. The eyes were a darker blue on the vintage. They're kind of the same color blue on the new figure as the shirt and everything he's wearing, which makes me think that they just didn't want another paint app. So those could be probably a little darker. That's a minor nitpick. Otherwise, this is a pretty nice recreation. All right, Space Cadet Raphael is one of my favorite Raphael action figures in the original Playmates Toys toy line. So I was really excited to see that Super 7 was getting to this one. Does it measure up to that vintage one? Well, there's a lot of things that I want to show you about this guy. And in fact, we are going to bring in the vintage one for comparison time pretty early on, just because there's a lot of things I want to talk about between the two figures there. One of the things is the outfit there is a much lighter gray on the new one. The vintage one definitely has a bit more of like a bluish tint almost to the gray that's used. This, you can see that there is a little bit of blue mixed in with it, but it's a bit lighter colored. It's interesting because, like, especially if you look up here at the top, you see the way the blue, it's very light, very subtle, but there's some blue in there. It almost makes the spacesuit look like denim. I don't know if that's coming across, but that is what I'm getting, like some acid wash jeans. That's almost what the spacesuit looks like on the new one. I don't think it looks bad necessarily, but it does stand out when compared to the vintage one, at least to eyes, to my, like, in person. Maybe not so much here on camera to you guys. You'll notice that on the front here, they do still have the same sort of deco. I think it's not necessarily a sticker, but it's probably like a tampo on this one, where it was a sticker on the original one. And it is not a one-to-one replica of the vintage sticker, though it's definitely inspired by it. But you can see there's some color differences in there. I think an argument could definitely be made stating that they should have sculpted all of these details instead of doing a sticker or tampo again. But they stayed pretty faithful to the vintage, aside from some color changes there. You can see that we've got this little hose coming out of the suit, which attaches to his little blaster, just like on the vintage one. They did change it to a silver this time, which does make sense. It kind of fits in with everything. You can see they also added some silver details, like on the top of the spacesuit here, on the shins. I think it was silver on the vintage one, but this right here is definitely some added silver. There's some really fun stuff here too that they added, like, for example, on the wrist, you can actually open up this little, like, wrist communicator, and if you can see it, there's a small little image of Fugitoid in there, like he's communicating with Fugitoid, and there's some, like, little buttons on a keypad. That's a really cool detail. I like that quite a bit. But the vintage toys always had some really fun things sculpted on, and one of the things I really want to talk about is on the vintage one, there was always this cool little green alien like stuck to the back of his spacesuit. You'll notice it's missing on the Super 7 one because they actually turned it into an accessory. And I love this. So we have an actual little green alien as a pack-in accessory. It's got an articulated head. That is pretty fun. Now, the only thing I will say is I kind of wish we had a way to cling him to Raphael's back somehow, just so that we can mimic this vintage look. But turning that sculpted detail into an actual little sidekick or buddy figure, which was something else the vintage Turtles toys always came with, I think that's really fun. I like that quite a bit. And that's one of those details that maybe you've never even noticed it before, but there it is, and now it's a full-on figure all on its own. That's pretty fun stuff. So with the space helmet there, we do have a removable clear dome, just like on the vintage toy. But you'll notice, too, that we've got an extra piece for the head. On the vintage toy, you can see he's got like a little visor over his bandana with like the little microphone piece hanging down in front of his mouth. And Super 7 made this a removable piece. You can see they molded it in like a translucent red plastic to fit over his head. So we're going to place that over his head here. It's actually a pretty tight fit. Definitely feels like it should be fitting on here a little bit better. It almost feels like it's too tight. It needs to come down a little bit further. Yeah, this doesn't seem like it fits really well, which is a bit of a bummer. You can see like it feels like it needs to come down like quite a bit further to fully sit over his face all the way. It's mostly over the eyes, but this is actually like pretty rigid, and it's just not fitting over that head sculpt the right way. I'm going to mess with it a little bit more here just to see if I can get it. So I took the head off just to see if that would help, but I'm really not having a lot of luck. You can almost see there's kind of like this indent on the head where you can see like that's probably exactly where this strap on the back is supposed to be sitting. I mean, maybe I can try warming this up to see if it gets a little bit more pliable, except I don't know if that's going to help. This feels really tight, like it's almost too tight to fit over this particular head sculpt here. I think that's the best I'm going to get it, which, man, I don't like that. I almost feel like it should have not been a separate piece. Maybe they should have just made it part of the sculpt of the head like the vintage one. It looks okay, but it definitely doesn't look like it's sitting over the... And look at how easy it just falls right back off. I cannot get this down over the eyes all the way. Man, that's a bit of a bummer. So, of course, we can finish that off by putting the dome over that entire thing. And that actually does clip in pretty nicely. Obviously, that covers the whole head, so you're not going to be able to, like, turn the head or anything. So you definitely want to put that in the right position before you place that dome on. But it does complete the overall look, which is a look that I always loved on that vintage toy. And look at these two side by side. They actually look pretty dang awesome. If we could just get those goggles to sit over the bandana properly, I think he would look even better. But I really like the dome. I think that looks pretty spectacular on there. Now, Raphael does come with some other accessories as well. Of course, we've got interchangeable hands aplenty, just like we've had with all the other figures, which gives us some closed fists, some open hands, some gripping hands, some hands with the trigger finger, which is specifically for some of the blasters that he's like the blaster weapon he's got there. We've also got the sword accessory, the space sword, which is something straight off the vintage toy. I always really liked that sword. The interesting thing here is the new one feels too small. If you look, it's pretty much the same size as the vintage figures, which means it's out of scale with this new Raphael. Here, I swapped him to a gripping hand. Let's put the sword in his hand here. So there we go. There he is with the sword in his hand. And I feel like it's just a little too small. I feel like that sword should have been scaled up like the other accessories just to fit a little bit better. Because the sword was always one of my favorite accessories from the vintage one. The handle is red this time around too, which actually works with Raphael. But overall, I do really like the look of this figure. We've also got a couple other new accessories here as well. First of all, we've got some new spacey style sais, which are really cool. They're almost like lightsaber styles. It looks like the sais themselves might be like red laser blades of sorts, and the handles even look like lightsaber handles. That's a fun new accessory. And that way Raphael also gets to use his signature weapon if that's what you prefer. This is a really fun accessory. It's like a pizza pouch. Look, there's a zipper on the end. You got this great little logo on there that says pizza. It's like he put a slice of pizza in a pouch to take it up into space with him. Fun accessory for sure. But we also get an entirely new head sculpt. This is like a turtle head shaped helmet that we can use instead of the dome in all of this. So let's go ahead and swap that on. So that's a pretty cool, like, brand new look for the figure. I like that helmet. It almost has a bit of like a stormtrooper vibe to it, and it's probably like the shape of the eyes and everything up there. And you can also still put the dome over it if you want to. It still fits just fine. But I don't know, it almost feels like it's supposed to be like a helmet on its own without the dome. But either way, you could display it either way on there. It's a fun new look. I think I still prefer to display it the other way, but this is a pretty fun figure overall. I'm really happy to see it, and this means that in the Ultimates line, we are just missing Undercover Donatello to complete that famous first variant quartet. Robotic Rocksteady. All right, this is a massive figure. You can see he's right at 8 inches tall, so he's the biggest figure in this particular wave. He is inspired by a vintage Playmates Toys action figure. Again, we're going to do an early comparison time to bring him in because the robotics were one of my favorite variants in that original line. And we can definitely have this argument again. Should this have been vac metal? Because the vintage ones were vac metal. And I know that there's always the arguments about how brittle and fragile vac metal is. In fact, these vintage ones are pretty notorious for flaking off vac metal. Not the silver one specifically, but there's like a red-pink version that sheds it like crazy. I don't know. It's tough. I definitely think he would have looked cooler if he was as shiny as the vintage one. We've seen that they're doing vac metal Silverhawks Ultimates now, after that's what we all wanted from the beginning. So it's one of those arguments that could definitely be made for this as well. Now, the silver paint that they used on this is pretty nice. It's the same silver that's on the shredder in this particular wave, so you can see it is shiny. Hopefully that's coming across, like the way the lights are reflecting off of it. It looks nice. It's probably going to be fine for most people, but there's definitely something lacking when it's not as like super glossy, super reflective and shiny like a vac metal figure from the vintage line. So I'm just going to stop there. That is what it is, I guess. One of the things that is really cool is that they did maintain the light piping feature on the top of the head there. Let me bring over my phone with my flashlight here. Look, if I shine the light in there, the eyes light up. See, that's pretty great. The vintage one did that, of course, as well. The light piping feature. My studio lights are definitely making that not as impressive. There, see, that's pretty cool looking. So I was really glad that they kept the light piping feature intact. That definitely feels like an important feature for this particular figure. Let me move the vintage one to the back here. Let me just go over the articulation really quick so you know what to expect. He does have a really nice ball joint there on the head. Look at that. There's some good movement there, actually. It looks like the neck also has got some movement. The neck is a little bit different on this particular figure, probably because of the shape. Very blocky, very chunky. The shoulders still have those really nice ratchet joints. They can go outwards, forwards, and backwards. Single joint at the elbow. It does swivel there as well. The hands, they pop out of socket really easy on this figure. And I don't know if it's because of like these big blocky square forearms, if that's what's causing it. They pop back into place fine, but look, just like with a little bit of movement, look how loose that got. It's really, I don't know, it's unfortunate. It's interesting because it's like still hanging on, so it's not falling out of socket, but it's very loose. Like you could spin the hands all the way around, and I have the same problem on both sides. Like look at that, just moving the wrist a little bit, it like pops it out of socket. You gotta like press it to lock it back in. So that, don't like that. Swivel there at the waist. You got those same kind of hinge joints at the thighs. Legs can go outwards, forwards, and backwards. They're very tight on this figure, which is good. Swivel below the knee, single joint bend at the knee, and then the ankles, you can see forwards, backwards, side to side. Articulation is pretty much the same as the other figures in this line. It all feels pretty good except for the hands, the way they sort of just fall out of socket. So unfortunate there. Now, we've got lots of fun accessories with this particular figure. Of course, we do have a bunch of interchangeable hands, so you could pop these hands out. You can swap in like open hands instead. I mean, see, look, it's the same thing. Look at how easy that just like fell out of socket and just rolls around. You got to like press it back in place. And then we got closed fists there as well. But we've also got some other accessories. You might notice he's got these great blasters up here on his shoulders, just like on the vintage figure. Those are articulated as well. You can even remove those. You can pop those out of the socket if you don't want those up there. But a fun little accessory for those is we've got blast effects. So these little blast effects can plug into the front of the barrels, and that's really cool. I like that. I think that is really awesome. We've also got a new accessory in the form of this big shield here. It's done in like a translucent purple, so he can use the open gripping hands to get like a really good hold on that. You can actually fold that around his fingers there. There we go. And he's actually got a really solid hold on that shield, which is pretty nice. Just like on the vintage one, you can see he's got this little removable axe-shaped gun thing that can come off of his wrist. The new one has that as well. This time it is fully painted. It's got silver accents. It's got some orangish red to match the body, and that just clips right there on the forearm, just like on the vintage one. It's not a super tight fit. It stays on, but it falls off easy. Like, did you see I'm barely putting any pressure there, and it is kind of falling off. And he's got a couple other accessories as well. So we've now got a new like laser dagger of sorts. And then we've also got this crazy saw blade. Now this saw blade is on the vintage one, but you can see with the vintage figure, it's got a handle and he's holding it. This is something that Super 7 changed because instead of giving this weapon a handle, it has a plug on there. Because what you can do instead is you can pop the hand out of socket, and in its place, you can plug in this crazy little chainsaw blade weapon. So now it's like his hand turns into the blade instead of it being a sword that he holds onto. And it's the same thing for this new little like laser blade. It's just got a peg that's the same size as the wrist pegs, so you can plug that in. That actually looks pretty cool, and it's something brand new for this particular figure. All in all, I think this is a really cool toy. He looks nice. He's huge. He's chunky. The only real complaint I have is that the wrists pop out of socket way too easy. And I guess a minor gripe would be vac metal would look better. But I still think he's a nice looking Robotic Rocksteady. So there you have it. New wave of TMNT Ultimates from Super 7. These have been out for a while. These have been shipping. So there's a good chance you guys might even already have this. Maybe there was no reason for me to do the video, but I really felt like I wanted to check these out and talk about them. And overall, I think this is a really solid wave. It's absolutely an improvement over what we got previously. And like I said, like the sculpt work has always been there. The biggest issue has just been in the QC because it's like from wave to wave, it varies. Sometimes they're very loose and sometimes they're fine. These felt mostly fine. I'm curious if any of you out there have the same issues with Raphael's goggles that I have, but I feel like that's the worst of it with this particular wave. I'm pretty happy with these, and I really hope that this is the trending direction for these because I really like some of the stuff that they revealed, including a lot of like the newer, more original stuff that they're starting to reveal for this line. And with the rumors of 2K3 versions of the Turtles on the way, I absolutely want those to be as best as possible. Now, I did order my set of these through BigBadToyStore.com. I know Big Bad Toy Store recently did like a massive sale on Ultimates. I don't think this way was included since it was brand new, but honestly, I absolutely wouldn't blame anybody for looking for a sale on these because, man, there's just too many toys these days. Thank you guys a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know what you think down in the comments. Let me know if you guys picked these up as well. And stay tuned. More video reviews and general toy fun is on the way. Until next time, my friends.